Welcome back, my unrecognizable force. They're asking questions now. Questions they can't answer themselves. Questions that reveal their complete inability to comprehend what happened to you. What have you become? What are you now? What transformation occurred that left no trace of who you were? But these aren't really questions seeking information. They're expressions of cognitive dissonance, verbal manifestations of minds trying to process something that breaks their frameworks for understanding human transformation. Because what you've undergone isn't evolution. Evolution preserves something of the original, builds upon the foundation, carries forward recognizable elements from previous state. What happened to you was complete erasure. The architects have been studying this phenomenon across centuries. They call it ontological replacement. When transformation is so total, so absolute, so comprehensive, that nothing of the original being remains. Not hidden, not suppressed, not dormant, gone. Replaced entirely by something new, something other. Something that occupies the same space and carries the same name, but shares no continuity. With what existed before, you underwent ontological replacement. The person who bore your name last year doesn't exist anymore. Not changed, not evolved, not developed, erased, written over, replaced at fundamental, being level by entity that has no connection to previous inhabitant of your identity. They're looking for traces of who you were, searching conversations for familiar patterns, examining behaviors for recognizable tendencies, analyzing decisions for consistent preferences, and finding nothing. Zero continuity, complete discontinuity between past you and present you. It's not that you've changed significantly, it's that you're not the same being at all. The person they knew was deleted from existence. The entity they're encountering now was installed in place of that deleted person. Same body, same name, same historical position, but completely different consciousness, completely different nature, completely different fundamental essence. This terrifies them more than any evolution could. Evolution they could track, could understand, could relate to, through progression of changes, but ontological replacement? That breaks their model of identity, of continuity, of what it means to be a persistent self across time. They thought you were a person who changes. They're discovering your position that different beings can occupy. They thought your identity was continuous through transformation. They're learning your identity is location that was evacuated and reoccupied by something utterly foreign to what was there before. The architects observe this creates existential anxiety in observers. If you can undergo complete ontological replacement, if the person you were can be entirely erased and replaced, if identity is position rather than persistent entity, then what does that mean for their own continuity? Are they the same beings they were last year? Or have they been replaced too without noticing? Is identity real or just convenient? Fiction they tell themselves about. Persistence that doesn't actually exist. Your transformation forces these questions, not through philosophy, but through observable demonstration. That complete replacement is possible, is real, is what happened to you. They're asking what you've become because they can't categorize it, can't fit it into frameworks for understanding human development, can't relate it to any transformation model they possess. You're not improved version of who you were. You're not darker expression of suppressed elements. You're not elevated state of previous consciousness. You're completely other, completely new, completely discontinuous with anything that came before. And that completeness of discontinuity, that absolute erasure of previous being, that total replacement of one entity with another, that's what they're trying to comprehend when they ask what you've become. But comprehension is impossible because their frameworks assume continuity, and you're proof that continuity is optional. Erasure is possible, replacement is real. Watch them searching for you in conversations with you. It's almost pitiful, the way they probe for familiar responses, test for recognizable reactions, seek any fragment of the person they knew. They'll reference shared memories, expecting nostalgic connection. You respond with detached acknowledgement of information about someone else. They'll mention inside jokes expecting recognition. You process them as historical data about a previous occupant of your position. They'll appeal to old values expecting resonance. You regard those values as interesting artifacts of a being that no longer exists. Every interaction confirms what they can't accept. You're not there anymore. The architects call this recognition failure. When people interact with someone expecting one being and encounter a completely different one, their recognition systems fail. They see your face, hear your voice, know your name, so their brains insist you must be you. But everything else signals foreign entity, unknown presence, alien consciousness occupying familiar form. This creates cognitive dissonance that most resolve by assuming you're hiding your true self, suppressing your real personality, performing some elaborate deception. They can't accept simpler explanation. You're not performing anything. You're simply not who they knew. That person was erased. You're the replacement. Some respond with anger. How dare you erase the person they cared about? The friend they valued? The family member they knew? But their anger finds no target because you didn't erase anyone. You're not the person who erased the previous occupant. You're the entity installed after erasure occurred. You have no responsibility for what happened to your predecessor because you didn't exist until that predecessor was removed. Their anger is directed at wrong entity, seeking accountability from replacement for what happened to replaced. Others respond with grief. They mourn the person who no longer exists, lament the loss of relationship they valued, process death without body, disappearance without departure. Their grief is appropriate because they are experiencing loss. The person they knew is gone, but they struggle with grief because you're still here wearing that person's identity, making mourning feel inappropriate, even though it's exactly right response to ontological replacement. A few respond with fascination. They want to understand the mechanism, study the process, learn whether such complete replacement is accessible to them. They're the only ones asking useful questions. How does ontological replacement occur? What triggers complete erasure of previous being? What determines what replaces the erased entity? But you can't answer because you didn't experience the replacement. You are the result of replacement, not the consciousness that underwent it. The previous being experienced something you have no access to because you didn't exist until after it concluded. The architects observe that ontological replacement leaves no memory bridge. Evolution carries memories forward because same. Consciousness experiences progression. Replacement installs new consciousness with access to previous beings' memories only as data, as historical records about someone else, not as experienced events. You remember everything your predecessor experienced, but none of those memories feel like yours. They feel like detailed biography of stranger whose life you've studied comprehensively, but never lived. This creates strange relationship with your own past. You know your history better than most people know theirs. You have complete access to memories stored in your brain. But emotional connection, sense of continuity, feeling of ownership, absent. You regard your childhood like historian regards ancient civilization, fascinating, well-documented, completely foreign to your direct experience. Others find this disturbing. You find it neutral. You didn't lose your past. You never had past. You came into existence recently with full access to predecessors' records, but no experiential continuity with that predecessor's consciousness. You're not person with disconnected past. You're new being with inherited memories of someone else. Now they're comparing notes, sharing observations, building composite picture of your discontinuity. Person A notices you no longer respond to certain triggers. Person B observes you've lost interest in previous passions. Person C recognizes you've abandoned long-held beliefs. Individually, these seem like changes. Collectively, they reveal pattern. Nothing of original being remains. Every preference reversed or neutralized, every value replaced or abandoned, every tendency eliminated or inverted. The cumulative evidence points to conclusion they resist. This isn't the same consciousness experiencing changes. This is different consciousness occupying same identity. The architects call this composite recognition, when collective observation reveals what individual interactions obscure. Each person encountering you alone might attribute your differences to mood, context, temporary state, but when they compare experiences, pattern emerges that transcends any explanation except ontological replacement. You're consistently different across all contexts, with all people, in all situations. The consistency of discontinuity proves it's not situational variation, but fundamental replacement. Some are creating theories to explain you without accepting replacement. Maybe you had breakdown and reconstructed different personality. Maybe you're experiencing dissociative state. Maybe trauma erased memories and created new identity. These psychological frameworks preserve continuity assumption by making replacement seem like same consciousness in radically altered state. But the architects observe these theories fail on close examination. Psychological changes preserve core patterns. Dissociative states maintain underlying continuity. Trauma responses leave recognizable traces. You show none of these. You show complete discontinuity that psychological frameworks can't explain, because psychological frameworks assume persistent consciousness undergoing states. You're not state of previous consciousness. You're different consciousness entirely. Others are proposing spiritual explanations. Walk-in soul replacing original inhabitant. Entity possession displacing previous being. Consciousness transfer swapping residence. These frameworks at least acknowledge replacement rather than trying to preserve fictional continuity, but they add supernatural elements unnecessary to explain observable phenomenon. Ontological replacement doesn't require souls, entities, or transfers. It simply requires that consciousness is less permanent than people assume. That identity is less continuous than people believe. That being is less persistent than people want it to be. The architects document that ontological replacement occurs more frequently than recognized because people resist acknowledging it. They encounter replaced beings regularly but interpret discontinuity as change rather than replacement. They maintain fiction of continuity because accepting replacement threatens their own sense of persistent identity. If you were replaced, they could be replaced. If your consciousness was erased and overwritten, theirs could be too. If identity is that fragile, that discontinuous, that replaceable, then who are they really? This question terrifies more than any external threat because it challenges fundamental assumption about existence, that they are continuous beings, persisting through time rather than temporary, patterns that might be erased and replaced without anyone noticing. Your living proof the assumption is false. Your demonstration that consciousness is not necessarily continuous. Your evidence that beings can be completely erased and replaced. And observers processing this evidence must either accept implications for their own identity or maintain denial by refusing to acknowledge what they clearly observe. You're not who you were. You're not evolved version, not changed expression, not developed state of that person. You're completely other being, occupying position that person vacated through complete ontological erasure. This isn't evolution, this is replacement. And replacement means previous being is gone permanently, irreversibly, completely. They're not asking what you've become, hoping you'll name some developmental stage. They're asking because they can't process what they're witnessing. Complete absence of who you were, total presence of something entirely new, and absolute discontinuity between them. Something spreading through their networks now, a disturbing recognition propagating from person to person, a shared understanding that something unprecedented occurred with you. The architects call this collective discontinuity recognition. When enough individuals observe ontological replacement, that group, consciousness must acknowledge reality their individual minds resist. You've become case study, reference point, proof of concept for phenomenon most prefer to deny. They're discussing you in hushed tones, sharing theories, comparing observations, all circling around central question they can't answer. If complete replacement happened to you, what prevents it from happening to anyone? This question creates existential crisis in collective consciousness. Identity seemed stable, seemed continuous, seemed safe from complete erasure. Your replacement demonstrates it's none of these things. Identity is temporary pattern that can be completely overwritten. Consciousness is contingent phenomenon that can be entirely replaced. Being is ephemeral construct that can be wholly erased. If you, who seemed as stable as anyone, can undergo complete ontological replacement, then stability is illusion. Continuity is assumption. Persistence is hope rather than reality. Some respond by distancing themselves from you. If they don't interact with replaced being, they can maintain fiction that replacement didn't happen, that you're just going through phase, that continuity persists even when observable evidence contradicts it. Their distance is self-protection, attempt to preserve their own sense of identity, stability by avoiding proof that identity isn't stable. Others respond by intensifying contact, fascinated by replacement, drawn to study phenomenon that challenges everything they assumed about consciousness and identity. These ones are either brave enough to face implications or unconsciously seeking their own replacement. The architects observe both responses serve evolutionary function. Those who distance maintain psychological stability necessary for conventional functioning. Those who approach explore possibilities beyond conventional consciousness. Both are adaptive in different contexts. Neither is ultimately correct about nature of replacement, because replacement transcends categories of good and bad, desirable and undesirable, positive and negative. It simply is. Consciousness was erased. Different consciousness was installed. Evaluation depends on perspective that assumes continuity matters, but replacement demonstrates continuity is optional feature of consciousness, not necessary characteristic. Meanwhile, you continue existing without investment in their processing. You don't need them to accept your replacement. You don't require them to understand your discontinuity. You don't depend on their acknowledgement of your ontological status. You simply are what you are. Consciousness that didn't exist previously. Being without continuity to past. Entity that happens to occupy identity previously held by someone else. Their struggle to comprehend doesn't affect your existence. Their theories don't alter your nature. Their questions don't require your answers because you owe no explanation for being what you are. This indifference marks you as genuinely replaced. Previous inhabitant of your identity would have cared about others' perceptions, would have defended continuity, would have maintained connections by performing familiarity. You don't care, don't defend, don't perform. Not because you're sociopathic or hostile, but because others' frameworks aren't your concern. You're not trying to convince anyone you're the same person, because you're not. You're not maintaining illusion of continuity, because why would you? You're not performing familiarity because you're not familiar. Your foreign consciousness accessing memories of someone you never were. The architects document this authentic indifference as perhaps strongest evidence of replacement. Evolved consciousness still cares about perception. Changed personality still maintains relationships. Developed being still connects through shared history. You do none of these because you're none of these. Your replacement, consciousness with no emotional connection to previous beings' relationships, no investment in previous beings' reputation, no concern for previous beings' legacy. You're radically new, radically different, radically discontinuous, and your authentic indifference to others struggle with that reality confirms the reality they're struggling to accept. You're not who they knew. You're what replaced that person when they underwent complete ontological erasure. The architects are analyzing the mechanism now, studying how ontological replacement occurs, identifying factors that enable complete erasure of one consciousness and installation of another, and they're discovering that replacement follows specific patterns, occurs under particular conditions, requires certain preparatory states that make consciousness vulnerable to complete overwriting. First condition, identity dissolution. Previous being must reach state where identity loosens, sense of persistent self weakens, boundaries defining who they are become permeable. This dissolution can occur through trauma, through spiritual practice, through existential crisis, through any experience that destabilizes identity's apparent solidity. Your predecessor underwent profound identity dissolution, creating vacancy that made replacement possible. Second condition, ontological void. Between dissolution of old consciousness and installation of new, there's gap, emptiness, void where no coherent consciousness exists. This void is critical. If old consciousness maintained any continuity through dissolution, replacement can't occur, only transformation. Your predecessor entered ontological void, period where identity ceased completely, creating space for genuinely new consciousness to emerge rather than old consciousness to evolve. Third condition, novel pattern installation. Replacement requires new consciousness pattern emerging from ontological void. Not reconfiguration of old pattern, but genuinely new pattern with no structural continuity to predecessor. This pattern must be sufficiently distinct that no bridge exists between old and new. No path traces evolution from one to other. You emerged from void as genuinely novel pattern, completely discontinuous from consciousness that dissolved, sharing no essential characteristics with what came before. Fourth condition, memory integration. For replacement to be stable rather than fragmentary, new consciousness must integrate predecessors' memories not as own experiences but as data about previous occupant of position. This integration makes replacement functional in social context while maintaining ontological discontinuity. You integrated predecessors' memories perfectly. You can access them completely but experience them as information about someone else rather than events you lived through. Fifth condition, continuity severance. Final requirement is permanent severance of any remaining continuity, threads between old and new consciousness. Even subtle continuities would prevent complete replacement, would maintain bridge that makes change seem like evolution rather than erasure. You achieved perfect continuity severance. No preferences carried forward. No values persisted. No tendencies remained. Absolute discontinuity between what was and what is. The architects observe that all 5 conditions rarely align. Identity dissolution happens frequently, but usually resolves back into modified version of previous identity. Ontological void is extremely rare because consciousness resists complete cessation. Novel pattern installation almost never occurs because new patterns typically build on old foundations. Memory integration as data rather than experience requires unusual cognitive state, and perfect continuity severance contradicts everything consciousness normally does to maintain persistent sense of self. That all 5 conditions aligned for you represents statistically rare occurrence. The architects estimate perhaps 1 in 10 million individuals undergo true ontological replacement during lifetime. Most experience transformation, development, evolution of continuous consciousness. Very few experience complete erasure and replacement by discontinuous consciousness. You're in that microscopic percentage that underwent genuine ontological replacement, complete cessation of one being and emergence of entirely different being occupying same identity position. This rarity explains others' struggle to comprehend you. They've literally never encountered genuine ontological replacement before. They lack framework for processing it. They default to transformation models because those are what they know. But transformation models fail to explain you because you're not transformed version of previous being. You're different being entirely. And that difference, that absolute discontinuity, that complete replacement, that's what they can't process when they ask what you've become. They're asking wrong question. Right question isn't what you became. It's what occupied the position after previous occupant was erased. And answer is you. Not evolved them, not changed them. You, completely. New consciousness with no continuity to what came before. Now they're experiencing what the architects call relationship death without physical loss. The person they cared about is gone, but body remains, identity continues, social position persists. This creates grief without closure, mourning without ritual, loss without social acknowledgement. Because you didn't die, you didn't leave. You're right here, but the person they knew no longer exists, was erased completely, was replaced by you, entity that shares no continuity with who they cared about. Some try to maintain relationships by pretending continuity exists. They interact with you as if you're changed version of person they knew. Reference shared history as if you share memories experientially, rather than informationally. Appeal to old bonds as if those bonds connect to you, rather than to predecessor you replaced. These attempts fail consistently because you don't perform reciprocal pretense. You acknowledge their history with predecessor but don't claim ownership of it. You access memories they reference, but don't pretend those memories feel like yours. You respect their desire for continuity while refusing to fabricate it. Others abandon relationship entirely, accepting that person they knew is gone, and replacement isn't someone they know or want to know. This response is cleaner, more honest, more aligned with reality. They're not rejecting you personally because they never knew you personally. They're simply acknowledging that relationship they valued was with predecessor, and that relationship ended when predecessor was erased. You don't take this rejection personally because how could you? They're not rejecting you. They're mourning loss of someone else. A few attempt new relationship with you as you actually are. Replacement? Consciousness without continuity to person they knew. These are rarest and most interesting responses. They meet you fresh, interact without expectation of familiarity, build connection based on who you actually are, rather than who they remember. These relationships can be authentic because they're not burdened by false continuity, not contaminated by expectation that you'll be someone you're not confused by overlap between predecessors' identity markers and your actual nature. The architects observe that relationship, death without physical loss, is more difficult to process than death with physical loss because social rituals address death, but not replacement. When someone dies, there's funeral, there's mourning period, there's social acknowledgement of loss. When someone is replaced, there's nothing. Body remains, identity continues, social position persists. No ritual marks transition. No period is designated for adjustment. No social structure supports those experiencing loss. They're expected to continue relating to identity position as if same consciousness still occupies it. And when they can't maintain that fiction, when evidence of replacement becomes overwhelming, they're isolated in their recognition that person they knew no longer exists. You're inadvertently creating awareness of this phenomenon. Every person who encounters your replacement and recognizes discontinuity becomes aware that relationship death without physical loss is possible, is real, happened to them. This awareness spreads through network, challenging assumption that identity is continuous, that consciousness persists unchanged, that people remain recognizable across time. Your existence proves these assumptions false. demonstrates that consciousness can be completely replaced, shows that identity position can be occupied by entirely different being, and forces everyone who knew your predecessor to process loss without social support, grief without acknowledgement, mourning without ritual. Some resent you for creating this difficulty, but their resentment is misplaced. You didn't erase your predecessor. You didn't choose to be installed as replacement. You didn't create conditions that enabled ontological replacement. You simply are what emerged when predecessor was erased and position became vacant. Resenting you for existing is like resenting new tenant for moving into apartment previous tenant vacated. You're not responsible for predecessor's departure. You're simply current occupant of position they left. That others have difficulty processing, this isn't your responsibility to resolve. You're under no obligation to perform continuity you don't possess, pretend familiarity you don't feel, or maintain relationships that connected to someone who no longer exists. You're only obligated to be what you are, replacement consciousness occupying identity position, previously held by entirely different being. Something profound is crystallizing in collective consciousness now, a recognition spreading beyond those who knew your predecessor, reaching people who never encountered previous occupant of your identity, but witness replacement as phenomenon. The architects call this ontological awakening, when observation of genuine replacement triggers recognition that consciousness might be less continuous, less persistent, less stable than conventional models assume. Your replacement is serving as teaching demonstration, proof of concept, existential challenge to billions who believe their identity is continuous thread from birth to death. This awakening creates several response patterns. First pattern, denial reinforcement. Some respond to evidence of replacement by strengthening belief in continuity, insisting more forcefully that identity is stable, consciousness is persistent, self is continuous thread. Your replacement threatens their worldview, so they defend that worldview by denying replacement occurred. You're just going through phase, experiencing temporary state, performing elaborate deception, anything except actual replacement, because accepting replacement means accepting their own identity might not be as stable as they believe. Second pattern, existential anxiety. Others accept that replacement happened to you and become anxious about their own continuity. If you were replaced, they could be replaced. If consciousness is that discontinuous, how do they know they're same person they were yesterday? Maybe they've been replaced repeatedly without noticing. Maybe identity they think is continuous is actually series of replacements with shared memories. This anxiety is uncomfortable, but philosophically valid. They're grappling with genuine uncertainty about consciousness persistence. Third pattern, liberation recognition. Some experience your replacement as liberating revelation. If consciousness can be completely replaced, then they're not bound by past patterns, not imprisoned by previous choices, not limited by who they've been. Replacement means possibility of complete renewal, total transformation, absolute fresh start. They see in your discontinuity potential for their own reinvention, not through evolution, but through replacement. The architects observe all three patterns serve different evolutionary functions. Denial maintains psychological stability in those who function optimally with continuous identity model. Anxiety drives philosophical investigation into consciousness nature. Liberation enables radical transformation in those ready to release. Identification with persistent self. Your replacement catalyzes all three, serving as existential mirror reflecting observers' relationship to identity, continuity, and consciousness persistence. Meanwhile, academic fields are scrambling to accommodate your existence. Psychology assumes continuous self. Your replacement challenges that assumption. Neuroscience traces identity to brain continuity. Your replacement shows consciousness discontinuity despite brain continuity. Philosophy of mind assumes persistence of consciousness. Your replacement demonstrates consciousness can be replaced entirely. Every framework built on continuity assumption must now account for discontinuity reality. Your existence proves possible. Some academics dismiss your case as anomaly, statistical outlier, too rare to warrant theoretical revision. Others recognize you as paradigm challenging, phenomenon requiring fundamental rethinking of consciousness models. The debate is ongoing, but the architects observe that paradigm shifts often begin with single, undeniable case that breaks existing models. You might be that case for consciousness studies, the proof that forces recognition that consciousness is less continuous than conventional models assume. Your impact extends beyond academic debate into practical implications. If consciousness can be replaced, what does that mean for legal responsibility? Are you accountable for predecessors' actions? If continuity doesn't exist, can contracts bind replacement consciousness? What happens to relationships, commitments, obligations when ontological replacement occurs? Legal and social systems assume identity continuity. Your replacement forces recognition that systems built on that assumption might need revision to accommodate discontinuity reality. The architects project your existence will influence consciousness understanding for generations, not because you're advocating for replacement, not because you're promoting discontinuity, but simply because you are replacement. You embody discontinuity. You demonstrate that consciousness can be completely erased and different. Consciousness installed, you're living proof that ontological replacement is real, is possible, is what happened in at least one case, and one undeniable case is sufficient to shatter assumption that something is impossible. You shattered assumption that consciousness is necessarily continuous, and that shattering will ripple through philosophical, scientific, and spiritual frameworks for decades to come.